I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, good evening, and thank you all for coming early. Appreciate that. The Finance Committee for coming really early. Thank you. So, okay, 1.03, regular meeting. There we go. There it is.
All right. Entertain a motion to approve the December 5th, 2022 regular meeting agenda.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Unanimous. 1.04.
Entertain a motion to approve the November 21st, 2022 regular board meeting minutes.
Second. Any questions on the minutes? No. Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Unanimous. Thank you. Student body reports. Jan. Oh, yeah, totally understand. So, go right to
I think we actually do have an elementary report or
great.
a video clip that I was gonna show.
fantastic.
Same thing happened last time, didn't it?
Oh, I'm Cooper. I'm Tinley. And we are in 5th grade. We wanted to share a few fun things that have been happening at Geneseo Elementary. November has been an extremely busy month for students in the elementary building. Our Go Blue trait we focused on was optimism, and students brought in over 160 Go Blue cards and got to sign the Wall of Fame. We had a Go Blue assembly in the auditorium.
During the assembly, Mr. Van Epps had to stay optimistic when we played egg roulette. Some eggs were hard-boiled and some were soft. It got very messy.
Veterans Day was celebrated on November 10th. We gathered around the flagpole and sang our annual Flag Day songs. After, we went to the library and heard their inspiring stories. Thank you to the 7 veterans that joined us.
Second graders in Miss Gibbons' class participated in a Thanksgiving Macy's Day Balloon Parade. They recreated the Macy's Day balloons and paraded around the school. There were cats, dogs, Minecraft characters, and Sonic.
We participated in a coin challenge. In first place was Ms. Pearson, in second place was Ms. Edwards, and in third place was Ms. Savino. The total money earned was $1,201.72.
The food collection drive took place to help the local food pantry. There was a total of 378 food items collected. The class that collected the most was 3rd grade with a total of 150 food items. 1/3 of the food. Great job, everyone.
We are very excited because we have the mezzanine back and don't have to have PE class in the foyer anymore. It was air conditioned, but it just wasn't the greatest space for us. We are excited for the new gym to be completed.
The 5th graders are still busy with fundraising for the whale watch trip. Baked goods were delivered on Wednesday. Well, there is no current fundraising happening. We will be doing the can drive for the remainder of the year. You can drop off your cans and make the donation to the whale watch. Future fundraising includes a pancake breakfast and a whale of the action.
This month we will be focusing on the Go Blue trait understanding and are sharing daily affirmations on the announcements. We are so lucky to have the nice weather and hope it continues in December.
Upcoming events include chorus concert on December 8th and December 15th. The band concert was on December 1st, and the strings concert on December 19th. We will participate in our 12 Days of Holiday Themed Spirit Week, which includes days like Christmas Character Day, Red and Green Day, and it will end with PJ Day on the last day before break. We will also have the our elementary school sing along on this day. We are very excited.
Thank you for listening and have a great day, the Go Blue West.
Oh, jeez. Is there a video of that? Just really want to thank Mr. Van Ups and the elementary students for bringing the elementary student report to us. We've had middle school and high school for a while, but it's nice to have the full gamut. So thank you for that work.
They've outdone themselves, Mr. Van Ups. Kudos.
And they work, they interview teachers and kids and put that whole thing together, so. Proud of them.
Fantastic. Thank you. Okay, we'll go right to administrative updates with our CFO.
Good evening. Woody and I were at a workshop, was, I don't know, back in September, October time, and they went very deeply into foundation aid. And so she asked me if I could give you maybe not the deep version, but maybe the abridged version of all things foundation aid. And so, as you may or may not recall, foundation aid came out of the Campaign for Fiscal Equity back in the 2006-07 timeframe. And so they developed this formula that would make public school funding in New York State all fair and equitable. And then they proceeded to not fund said formula. So here we go. What we're really looking at here is where's this data coming from? And it comes from a bunch of places, but first place it comes from is the state aid claim forms. Every summer we have to put together our claim forms. We submit them to SED. We're talking about not only our financial performance, but also attendance forms, our claim forms, building aid, transportation at cost, those kinds of things. And the state uses all of those different claim forms to generate some of our aid. They also pull information in the foundation aid from the Department of Taxation and Finance. They get some information from other agencies, SED, Comptroller's Office and such. So with that, we'll look at the very simple building or foundation aid formula. So this formula puts together, as it was put together, is put together by State Aid Planning out of Questar 3 BOCES. So we need to give them credit for putting this all together. It's simple, but it's just convoluted, if you will. Anything that you see in green, if that's not lighting up, is green, it's an actual pupil count. We're counting kids and figuring out how many kids fall into each bucket. Here in the red, down here in the lower right as I'm looking at it, is different ratios that we're looking at. And the blue is what we're just going to call other, just other different bits of information. So if this isn't going to work, we're going to start here in foundation aid, and we're going to kind of talk about, say, foundation aid is quite simple. It's either $500 or you've got your adjusted foundation amount times your pupil needs index times your regional cost index less a local share, right? Well, what the heck is all this stuff? So your adjusted foundation amount is simply a foundation amount, which is a number that they just grabbed from a report for what did they call it? It was the, give me 1 second. Oh yeah, successful schools. That's what it is. The successful schools study. This is where they pull this information, says that that's the number that we need for foundation amount, consumer's price index, multiply the foundation amount by consumer price index times the foundation percentage to get your adjusted foundation amount. You can kind of see we're a little wonky here, right? And so then we have this part here is the most interesting part to me personally, pupil needs index. So the pupil needs index is from your extraordinary needs percentage +1, right? So what your extraordinary needs percentage is coming over here, your extraordinary needs count divided by the number of kids that are enrolled. And so your extraordinary needs count is going to come down here to your sparsity count your 3-year average of free and reduced price lunches, English language learners, and census for our poverty. So if we come back over here to sparsity count. So you have a base year, and what they're looking at is rural schools like Geneseo. You have a large population over a large geographic area. We're going to count those kids. We're going to give you some aid for getting those kids and getting them to school and educating them. And it's very current information. They have a 3-year, what we call FERPL, free and reduced price lunch count, and it's a 3-year rolling average, right? So again, pretty current information. We have our English language learners. So this comes from our SIRS report, our State Information Repository System. The sparsity count comes from some of our claim forms. The English language learners comes from our Form A that we have to put in for one of our claim forms. So they take our English language learners, multiply that times 0.5, and they give us some counts for that. But this one right here is a little bit tricky. Tricky is from the 2000 census. Okay, so they look at in 2000, what % of our student population was below the poverty? And I can tell you in the year 2000, we had 900 kids enrolled in Geneseo Central School, and 90 of them were below the poverty. So 10%. So they add up all of these numbers, and that gives you your extraordinary needs count. And then we divide that by our enrollment for the current school year, and that gives you the extraordinary needs percentage. Add 1 to that, get your per pupil needs index. Okay. So the point in this why I find this interesting in a little disturbing way, is these 3 counts are fairly accurate as far as they reflect where we are currently. But this is 22-year-old data. You know, we've had 2 full national census since this was implemented. And
what's a comparable count today?
I don't know, but we're going to kind of answer that question later. I don't know what a comparable, where our poverty line is today. What I can tell you is our FERPL rate today is 41%. If as far back as I could go and find fairly quickly was 2008, that number was down to 26%. So, you know, and we know that our demographics have changed over time and continue to change. So that number we're going to come back to later, but that number is problematic. And then you have our regional cost index, right? So our regional cost index is just something that's provided by SED, their financial analysis unit. This is, we break out Western New York versus Finger Lakes versus the North Country versus the island, whatever. And so they give us this number. And then they say, but wait a minute. So if you're only going to get $500 per kid, you know, we've already backed out your local share. But if you're going to use this formula, and you get the greater of the 2, we have to have a local share that we're going to have to back out, because you, the local taxpayer, you, the local community, are responsible to educate your own children. And so how are we going to do that? We're going to either use an expected minimum or the foundation aid state sharing ratio. We're going to start here with the expected minimum. We end up falling over here. So we're going to go there in a minute. Right now, we're going to talk about the expected minimum. So when New York State looks at, so how wealthy is a school district? They look at 2 things. They look at property wealth and they look at income wealth. And so in this instance, they're going to start here with your adjusted gross income for the entire district. So when you do your personal income taxes, you've got to put your little school district code, and they use that to say, okay, so here's the adjusted gross income for Geneseo Central School District. And to get this index, we're going to look at that district relative to its total weighted foundation pupil units. And we're going to look at that number compared to the statewide average of all districts' adjusted gross income to their total weighted foundation pupil units. That gives you this index. You multiply that index, excuse me, times a local factor that just comes from the fiscal, the same fiscal analysis unit. And then you multiply that times your assessed value divided by your total weighted foundation pupil units. So again, based on what they're looking to do, is they're trying to say, okay, so how much income does a district have? And how much property wealth does a district have to figure out how wealthy or lack thereof is any particular district. So once they come up with that, that's what gives you your expected minimum contribution. And for us, I think that number is around $11,000. So you have then, can you come down this next chart? So again, all we're trying to do is get up here to this local share. So now we're going to come down here and we're going to look at this formula at the very bottom. So it's doing the same thing in a slightly different way. It's looking at income, it's looking at property wealth to get you your foundation aid combined wealth ratio. So, and then it takes and just essentially takes that foundation aid combined wealth ratio and it plugs it into these four formulas and says, whichever is the greatest, whichever is the biggest one of those, that's where you're going to fall. And for us, that number is 0.45. So we're responsible for that. So if you subtract that number from 1, we're then responsible for 55% of that adjusted foundation amount, which is the same adjusted foundation amount over here. So basically what they're doing is New York State saying, okay, so we're telling you it takes X dollars to educate a child. And for Geneseo, you're going to be responsible. Your local share is going to be about 55% of that dollar, and the state's going to pick up the rest. So now that we have what our selected foundation aid is, now we have to figure out, well, we have to count our kids, right? And we can't just go and count children because that might be a little too easy. So we're going to come down through and we're going to talk about, we're going to have our average daily membership. Average daily membership is essentially any child that could have attended, whether it's K-12 enrolled here, out-of-district BOCES, out-of-district private placement, homebound instruction, all of those count in your average daily membership. You have an enrollment index. You also multiply that. You also have here your summer average daily membership. So we have our own in-house summer school. You get a few pupil unit counts for your in-house summer school. And then our students with disabilities, you get a 41% boost to help count those kids a little bit extra, right? So for every one student with disability, you get 41 cents more or 41 more units for them. So these over here, we're pretty good about keeping track of those and reporting those through, whether it's our IEP Direct for our special needs kids, or our claim forms, our attendance forms, and those things. But we need, what Cindy and Stephanie and I did today, just take a kind of a, make sure that do the numbers make sense? Are these numbers right? Because that's really the only way you have to catch this, is to make sure that everything you're reporting is right, because then the formula is crazy as the gyrations are. The formula just runs and it is what it is. As you may recall, the governor and the legislature are, historically they've said they're going to let the foundation aid run and it's going to be what it's going to be. And we'll see how that plays itself out here towards the end of January. Does that really come to pass or does it not? We'll see. But I really want to go back to Mike's question here about this census data, right? So I said to myself, well, we've seen our purple rate go up quite a little bit. So what if just not 10%, but just 20% of our student body was under the poverty line? Right? And then if that number changed, what is the impact on that? Because on all of our foundation aid, right? Because the only thing that impacts is just this number, and then making its way up through, because it doesn't hurt your deducts, it doesn't fall into anything else. It's just, if we went and changed that from 10% to 20 and multiplied that all through, that would give us another $750,000 of foundation aid for those kids. So what I would say to you, Mike, to answer your question, is if there was one thing that you as a board could do to advocate as the state budget is starting to roll around, is update just that, right? I mean, it's the only number really that is that dated, but it is, for us, it's very, very detrimental. For others, it might go the other way. They might not want that, but for us, I would say we would certainly want to see 2020 census data being used, because we all know, do I know the exact number? I have no idea, Mike, but I can tell you,
Good sense.
if we move just to 20% for a poverty rate, that would have a huge impact on our foundation aid. And the formula, when you actually sit down and work through it, and maybe because I'm a geek, I don't know, but I find it interesting. You can see whether I agree with it or not is a different argument, but I can understand the thought process that was put behind most of it. This down here, all of this is just to get the state sharing ratio where they're supposed to be. 44% is going downstate, 27% is going to Western New York. They've got that down to a science, and a lot of that is driven right there, because these are just arbitrary numbers that are pulled to make sure that that foundation aid goes where the legislature wants that money to go, in big chunks of the state, downstate, like Island, Western New York, the North Country. So I realize it's a little bit convoluted, a little bit abbreviated, but it kind of gives you a flavor of all of the information, where it comes from, how it works its way through there. But
in finance, one of you mentioned that some districts, kind of like the squeaky wheel gets the grease, so you're able. Is that one where do they have to change that for everybody, or can we yell loud enough to get our number changed?
Great question, Mike. I'm going to say that that's going to be tough, because that's going to impact everybody, right? I think what Cindy was mentioning in audit is maybe they tweak some of these numbers, maybe rather than being 1.37, maybe it's 1.61. And I'm obviously making that number up to get those things to really hit certain districts that they want to hit. So they can tweak that, or they can, some of these do have a maximum or a minimum, and they'll tweak the maxes and the minimums to make sure that they can get the money where they want it. I should also point out there's a neighboring district that has, so we talk here on the income in both the adjusted gross income and the assessed value. We have a local district that has more gross assessed value than we do, has more gross adjusted gross income than we do, but is slightly larger and gets per pupil a whole lot more aid than we do. Their local share cost is almost half of what ours is. And it's just, it makes you scratch your head. So some of it does seem to work. Some of it, like the sparsity count, would make sense, right? If you got a big district that's going all over half acre to bring kids to school, that there needs to be an adjustment there versus a district that's 10 square miles, right? So that some of it does make some logical sense, but some of it really is head scratching to me about. Does anybody else have any other questions about how this works or anything?
You mentioned the total excess value was one of the factors in all this. Now, of course, in Geneseo, we have a boatload of exempt property, county, the state. Is that not part of it, or is that part of it?
No, that is not.
Okay.
No, that is left out.
All right. The other thing on the bottom left that needs to be changed, is ASBO working on that, lobbying for that, and the superintendent's group?
On the updated census data, yes,
Okay.
Absolutely. I can't speak to Niscus, that I can't.
Yeah, the superintendent's group is aware of that. And in fact, that's originally where I had heard that they were using such outdated data.
Yeah.
And then when we went to this conference, this was just a simple, although it doesn't look it, was a simple way to look and to understand foundation aid.
And you can just look at different specific pieces and say, this changed just a little bit, what are the impacts? And they can be remarkably large, small changes, which is why we have to go through and make sure that the information we're providing on claim forms is right, because it can really either, if your information is wrong and you're ever audited, that's going to be a take back and that's going to hurt. or you're leaving money on the table, and that's not wise. So it just has to be, right.
That's the best explanation of that I've ever heard. Thank you.
Well, I think it was Rose, I think Rose Fitterman from Safety Plan did a great job of it here. And she really worked through it, and the book, they've got a handbook, guidebook out there on their website. It's like 50, 60 pages. And it's to me, interesting. But anyway.
Thanks.
Other board members, questions? Thank you. Thank you very much.
You can see it on the very edge.
Oh, okay.
Being it's just too late for it.
Mrs. Miller.
Mrs. Miller.
Evening.
Good evening.
So I'm just gonna share a little bit, without dancing, a little bit about some of our student populations and update on, I know Mr. Salatel and Mr. Van Ops and I reported a little bit about some of our student data, 3 through 8 regions, assessments, but some of the things that we didn't go over were our NYSESLAT, which is the New York State English as a Second Language Achievement Test. So again, this assessment is given every year, and it's given to our English language learners. So just wanted to share a little bit about those results that are from the spring of last year, and where our students landed on that assessment. It's given in chunks. So there's a K1, a 2, 3. So there's, depending on what grade level the child is in, they are administered a series of a couple of tests. It tests reading, writing, listening, and speaking. And after they answer multiple choice, long answer questions, they're given a result, and then it's in one of these categories. So entering would be the beginning level. Those students, if they get a result in the area of entering, require a lot of support. This also dictates how much support they get during the school year from an ESL teacher. So we had 0 in the entering or that beginning stages. Both entering and emerging requires the highest level of support from an ESL teacher. And then transitioning and expanding is kind of an emerging and transitioning is kind of an intermediate, and expanding and commanding. Those commanding students, so the reason why I share this is we did have a lot of students this past spring score at the commanding level, which then means they are not considered an L, they're considered a former L, but they still require some level of support. We have to report on the students that earn commanding, and we should still be providing a level of support, which is less amount of minutes with an ESL teacher. So just wanted to share that. I think that's kudos to. We now have 3 ESL teachers, Haley Wixon, and Sarah Kelly and Becca Gerald. And at the same time, I just wanted to thank, we had 2 long-term subs in the positions earlier and still one that's here. We're, certainly have a shortage of teachers, and we're able to fill both the long-term positions. So just wanted to thank Colleen Scoville, who seems to not be able to stay away of retirement and payroll, and who's still on and taking that role through mid-January. Yes.
On that there.
Yep.
So I like trends.
Yep.
I'm really looking just at the elementary.
Yep.
So where is the 21 relative to last year, previous year?
Good question. Elementary tends to be higher typically. So I would say that number is typically in the 20s.
So it's about level.
Yeah, it's about level. Now, I think probably last year, the year before, I showed our trends of our SL or our L students has been increasing. Our highest was 2 years ago, I think at 59, or my next slide is at how many we have. Okay. We've stayed, I would say, in the time that I've been here the last 4 years, within that 40 to 50 range. So this is just our current level. So again, last year, those are the scores. These are current numbers. Again, just wanted to show, again, our number of L's, which does not include those that have earned the commanding level. Also want to share a little bit about our special ed, just our numbers. So we have to fill out reports, again, just like BEDS reports. There's some BEDS data and some ER data, and we have to share the classifications, and there are 13 classifications. So I just wanted to give people just an idea of the type of learners that are in our building and outside our building. So these are our students that are attending in Geneseo at Geneseo Central School District, but also may be attending an out-of-district placement, BOCES, a private location, or maybe even another public school. So that's our total number, is that 134 this year. Looking at trends I did do last year, we were at 121. I do share this not because we had that many new students classified, but this year we've seen an increase with our enrollment of students that have entered with already having an outside placement or having documentation for needing a level of support. So just wanted to share that we've seen, I would say, more of an increase this year of people transferring in with an IEP.
So the number of students
Should not add up, and I'll tell you why. So good question. There are three classifications I didn't share because there's such a small number of students. Deafness, multiple disability are two of those. So I didn't share those numbers because they're less than 5, actually like 1 and 2. So just I did want to, intellectual disability, multiple disability, and deafness. So yep, your math is correct. And again, in terms of breakdown, less students classified in the elementary building, more higher 40s, more 60s in the middle school, high school, and district. Also, one of the things that I've shared with the board previously was our focus on trying to increase the amount of time students with IEPs are spending in general education. So I had shared a while ago, 2 years ago, that we were no longer going to have our special classes at the elementary level. There was a special class with the primary level and intermediate. And this is our second year with not having that class. We did add an 811 because we were looking at how we could have opportunities for students to spend more time in the general ed classroom with support. So we looked at that model, needs, and added resource room period to provide that support. So we just wanted to show again trends of the students that are in Geneseo and the amount of time that they're spending in general ed classroom. And again, this is K-12. And you can kind of see the trends of our total number of students as well as how that amount has the number have increased in that area. I do want to share, as I mentioned, our 811 classroom was new this year and has been very successful. Megan Arndine has been doing a tremendous job as well as Gretchen Ruff, who is the TA in that classroom, and Matt and Marion and Dakota, who are the aides. We've been collaborating with Group 2 for the augmentation devices. Music therapy has been in our building. So there's been a lot of new. We had also shared about the increase in speech and PT. So just wanted to also mention that that's been very successful. And I think we're going to have our second student start integrating into general ed a little bit. So again, that is the goal. So wanted to share that. We currently have 6 students in that classroom. The other trend I just wanted the board to be aware of is the number of preschool students that are classified. So you can see there's a significant increase. I think we can all kind of reflect on what has happened over the last couple of years and how that's led to more of our 3- and 4-year-olds requiring a level of support. So I'm not sure what that has in store for us as a district. Out of the 27, I think about 13 of those have related service only, which means they receive speech, OT, or PT, not necessarily that they're in a classroom with a special ed teacher. The last part, just have 2 slides about this. I oversee our title grants, our consolidated grants. So just wanted to share the description of each of those. We receive funds each year in these areas. Again, the purpose of these funds is to support the achievement gap for students, so provide resources and instructional support to help bridge that gap connected to standards and learning. So we are obligated to give a portion of those to the private schools where some of the Geneseo students attend, whether that be a private school in Geneseo or private schools where our students attend, that like a St. Agnes and Avon or a Lime Christian school. So there's a formula that we have to look at and allocate depending on how many students are in those buildings. So that's what the private school portion. Just wanted to share a little bit about how we spend those funds. Title I is our majority. We put a lot of those resources into our interventionists to support academic intervention. And there's also an amount that we need to set aside for those students that fall under McKinney-Vento. I think a couple of meetings ago, Ms. Flowers shared about the trends of our McKinney-Vento students. So already this year, we've purchased things for school supplies right before Thanksgiving. In collaboration with Courtney Hathaway, we bought families something that they needed before the long weekend. So you can allocate, there are certain things that you're able to provide families with those funds. Our school counselors have also reached out to some of those students that fall under that and asked if there are certain things that we can do to help with that. So that's Title I. Title II, we put a lot of those funds towards our mentors and our mentoring program. Also paid for some professional development for some of our related service providers that maybe there aren't opportunities for them to do some professional learning through BOCES. And Title III goes back to those the L populations. We have funds that are allocated. We are part of a consortium. So we work with other school districts and we help facilitate. I'm using that money because you aren't able to just apply for that $4,000 or plus dollars. We use that to facilitate an English language learner parent night, and also for materials and supplies. One of the things that's been very useful for our district is Proprio. It's an opportunity for parents to be able to communicate with staff members, and it's a telephone service, and so you don't always have to have an interpreter on hand. A teacher can use Proprio to call a family, and they have every language. Right now there are 4 different languages in Geneseo besides English. And then the last one is Title IV, and we use a lot of those funds to support AP exams, and this year for some of the adaptive PE, because those students that I mentioned in 811 required some different resources and services for their PE program. That's an overview of our title funds. Any questions related to that?
70, what's our percentage of classified students?
So 14-ish%, I think we say about. For the most part, we've been pretty consistent. I think that was a slide I think I shared a while ago, but we haven't gone over that.
Stephanie, seeing this data as such, where we were, where we are, do you think
maintain status, you see the decline, you see a decline, but you
Yeah. So that's why I showed the preschool piece in terms of special ed. I think we're going to see a little bit of an incline, but I think it goes back to some of the things that we've talked about previously in terms of our MTSS systems. How can we intervene early? How can we support? I think another struggle is we rely a lot on the county to provide those early intervention services, and I know they also are very much struggling to hire people to support with speech and OT and PT. So I mean, and Casey and I have had some discussions about how can we do some things a little different to support students as they enter. But I would say we're gonna see the effects of that for a little while.
From your perspective, still, how do you think?
In
This program
the area of special ed. So I think what we've done a good job is looked at special ed has such a continuum of supports, and the population of students constantly is changing. So you're trying to harness the resources that you have and align those with what the needs are for the students. The needs are changing. So I think, I talked about what we did 2 years ago with looking at what the needs were. And the need wasn't having two self-contained classrooms at the elementary level. It was really looking at how we could provide programming that was appropriate. And we were able to do that. So I think we've responded to the needs as we've seen those. I think there's always work to be done. And I think it also can be challenging when you're a small school and you're trying to provide an 811, a consultant teacher, you're trying to provide that continuum. I would say another positive was that we recognize we're going to have a lot of students that are in our 811 now. 5 of them would be out of district placements, and we created that program so those kids could come here. So I think that's pretty powerful that we were able to do that, not without some heartache, and it's hard where we don't have a lot of space too. So I guess I look at those as 2 positive things that we've done in terms of responding to what the students' needs were. But I think we can always be doing that.
Well, it really speaks to the planning that both Mrs. Miller and Mrs. McDonald did to make that 811 be as successful as it is. When I first started as special ed administrator, we did bring back a group of students for 811 and a little bit older group of students, and we really struggled to meet their needs. So kudos to them, because they really just had to make sure that they had all those programs, services in place before those students.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Holt?
Good evening. I hate to disappoint, but I don't have a PowerPoint, so I'm just.
Are you guys?
Most of the updates I'm going to be giving are more infrastructure related as far as projects that we started at the end of the summer and have been working on through the fall, but I wanted to give the board an update as far as where we will with some of those projects. First one, we haven't really reaped the benefits of yet, but the infrastructure in place for extending our wireless network to the outside of the building. It was a goal that we had, honestly, from the onset of the pandemic, that we knew we need to have some more flexibility on our campus as far as both inside and outside. So we had some technicians from Wing Finger Lakes overseas, because it entails getting lifts and obviously a different level of just hanging an access point that we have done for years on the inside. So they mounted it on like 15 access points on scoreboards and the perimeter of the building, with the exception of obviously the new construction. They're going to come back and put 2 more access points out there, but it should benefit especially our phys ed staff, but also the flexibility of instruction. So if people want to bring their classrooms outside, it will not to the far reaches of the corners, like the baseball field. I'll be honest with you, that's a far reach, but outside of that, the Field of Dreams, track, and everything like that should have some pretty good coverage. So if we do need to use that for anything more substantial, we're set up to that. We probably will wait until spring to actually light it up, to actually connect to those pieces, because we're also looking at the infrastructure that's existing in our wiring closets, to account for that. Second piece is security camera upgrades. Mark Wagner, our buildings and grounds, has been working on installing only interior security cameras, and we still have some of the older analog cameras that are on our network that we've been slowly but surely trying to replace over the last several years. This fall, he has either replaced 10 cameras that were either failing or some blind spots in our building, pulled those in, replacing either the analog cameras with IP cameras, or actually doing new runs. We still have about 10 more that we're working on doing throughout the year. But meeting with the administrative team and school resource officer in some of the trouble spots, that's kind of the angle that we're taking, and also using the 35K that's available to schools for those infrastructure types of replacements on the cameras. Third infrastructure piece is these boards right here. We had, as a test run, as we're starting to replace our smart boards and ceiling mounted projectors, or the short throw projectors in the classrooms that were either failing or just becoming outdated. We had installed 2 years ago 5 or 6 of these kind of bulk boards, these ViewSonic boards in rooms, and we're getting good feedback from the staff that was using it and the students that were experiencing it. So the majority, we at the end of the summer, had installed, last 2 weeks of the summer, I think it was, put up about 20 of these boards, in the building. And we had surveyed, our technology committee had surveyed, the staff as far as, okay, who's in the biggest need for these, like who has, either projectors that were failing or smart boards that were failing. And we had about 30 respondents saying, okay, this is absolutely impacting my instruction. So we used the same crew from Wayne Finger Lakes Explosives to install those when they mounted them in classrooms. When they're mounted on the wall, those are very heavy boards, and it's a pretty big lift for our buildings and grounds to do it themselves. We have 3, I think, that are portable on carts like that, which is helpful for especially the construction project. The flexibility. The phys ed teachers were able to use it out in the foyer. Now we wheeled that into the mezzanine, so it's like has a classroom and can be a mobile classroom as well. Definitely need more training, for both me and the staff. We had a trainer from USANA come in at the end of the summer who was outstanding. We had probably 20, 25 people in here to nick the service of what these boards can do, but we need to extend that out because it is a difference, but they are definitely nice boards. We are looking to continue that replacement plan later this year, probably 5 or 6 more throughout the school year. 2 last things. We hired a contractor to do a network vulnerability scan and penetration test earlier in the school year. He shared results with Cindy and I don't really want to get into the specific details of what the testing was, but it was interesting, to look at what vulnerabilities either our network has from the inside or outside of the network. And I've been working with our network team at EduTech to kind of plug some of those holes up. So definitely eye-opening, but it was good for us to see what those pieces are. And I think we'll probably end up sharing in more detail later on after we kind of digested that the report and address some of those vulnerabilities.
To that point, having that information shared in a public session would obviously impact the safety and security of our district. So that does qualify as one of the reasons to have an executive session. The owner of that company will come to an executive session and review that report. And Mr. Fulton was back.
Great. And lastly, we're just starting to get ready to roll out Windows 11. All of our Windows devices in the district are Windows 10. As a test run, we have some portable devices and we started putting Windows 11 on. But once again, there's different network policy changes that happen when we're going to go to an upgraded operating system like that. So we're hoping to have some test units ready for students because that was one of the goals of our technology committee, is not just use Chromebooks for our high school students all the way through, especially in some of our art classes or technology classes, and they need to be doing a more robust program like Autodesk. So what we're looking to do is install Windows 11 on those, but we have to be careful that we're putting the correct policies on both for antivirus and for content filtering. Much different than a Chromebook. Chromebooks are very easy to manage, but I still lean back on the feedback we got from families and our teachers and our students for that matter. That one of those common themes was, are these Chromebooks really preparing our students for life after Geneseo? And I think giving them the experience of both the Chromebooks and the iOS Apple devices, but then also issuing the students that need a Windows device by the time they graduate so they can experience that both in our on our campus and at home. It is the goal of our technology committee down the long run. Not ready for that yet. We're still kind of doing some R&D on what those Windows 11 devices will look like both on campus and off campus, but that's a goal for later this school year.
How many Windows devices do we have?
We got about 120 last year. At the end of last year, they came in over the summer. We started unwrapping them and putting those images on. And the idea, Mike, is going to be for our high school students. So they would, hopefully, the idea would be entering 9th grade. They get that at the beginning of 9th grade and they keep it all the way up through graduation. That's what the goal is going to be. So, I mean, we have been getting enough for a class set replacement of Chromebooks every school year. We still will need that. We'll still need to get those Chromebooks to backfill either damaged screens or keyboards. The length of them, I would say 3 years is a stretch when they're getting brought back and forth, but the goal is to issue them in 9th grade. I know there's a lot of different topics. Any questions about either the infrastructure changes or the policy pieces that we're working on?
You see any new subscriptions or programs that staff's asking for that you've not been able to meet that need yet? Or
There's
is it pretty good?
I think we're good, Chris. There's been a lot of requests for more digital resources. We're using ClassLink this year for the first year, and that's been a challenge for me, to be honest with you. It helps with the rostering of, you know, taking them out of school tools, setting up all their accounts for these different programs. So I need to get better at managing that component of it. We're trying to fund as many of the subscriptions through EduTech, through BOCES as we can, both to get the aid on it, but it also does the EdLaw 2D compliance. There's always onesie, twosie types of requests we get. We try to maximize what's going to have the biggest impact on, you know, the entire school. Obviously, there's some specialty types of software packages that we need to look at by curricular basis, but I think we're in a pretty good spot for that.
Good. Yes. Great.
Anything else?
Thanks, Jen. Thank you, Jen, very much.
Wow. The presentations.
It is.
Everyone.
Good ones.
All right, so we'll start with the positive news, our building updates on our building capital project. We continue to be on schedule. Soon the steel structure will start going up soon. That'll be exciting because that will really start to frame what that addition will truly look like. And our pool locker rooms are open. So for a while when we were able to open up our pool, we were unable to open our locker rooms. They were doing some support in there, and they had to replace the ceiling. So happy to report that those are open and being utilized. Now to the bad. Wanted to give some information about some things that are happening. So we have seen significant shift in the cafeteria. That's the end wall where we actually present when we're in there for like budget hearing meetings or any type of safety meeting. That is the end wall. And Aaron came in one morning and noticed that that's about a ½ inch of a crack between the fascia, is that what that's called, and the wall. And so that was concerning. So we did have a structural engineer come out. The good news is that's not a weight-bearing wall. The supports, the contractors have tied in that wall to the new construction, which really saved us from having a bigger or more significant issue here. It didn't move as much because of those supports that were on the other side. But really the solution will be to, you can brace that wall or build a new wall. We will most likely remove that wall and build a new wall. Again, non-weight bearing. This time we will go all the way to the ceiling, unlike the way this one does. It would just help if we replace the problematic pieces of our project. And the large gym. The floor is buckling. If you have walked in the gym and you go to the left where the bleachers are, you definitely feel that the floor is moving, and it's due to moisture. And not quite sure why we're having that issue with moisture. Is it that the cold air is coming in from where the small gym was, meeting with warm air, causing condensation? So what we're doing is we're hoping as they continue to move forward and button up that outside area, that will prevent some of that cold air. And hopefully we'll stop seeing the damage. We did remove at the bottom of the gymnasium, the base that allowed more airflow and did seem to stop it from progressing. What we really need to do now is dry out, warm up, and we've been told it will go back to its original shape once it is dry. So we'll keep you updated on that piece.
Can you just add what we talked about in finance? It doesn't affect basketball.
Yeah, so where that floor is buckling is not on the court. It is really where you're walking in the door to the bleachers. And this year, Casa Trinity will be coming to Geneseo to provide lessons for our middle school students. So what is Casa Trinity? They're high quality, accessible, and effective prevention strategies, and really around drug and alcohol and use. So they have programs that are from kindergarten to 12th grade. They talk about treatment options, and then they also have services for referral and recovery. Specifically for us, they will provide the program Too Good for Drugs, a social perspective. Obviously, the goal is to increase our protective factors and reduce our risk factors, really promote a well-being and healthy lifestyle. Again, there's 50 interactive lessons for our middle school students and hoping to help them with conflict resolution, bullying prevention, anger management, and respect for staff. So thankful that that CASA is coming in and doing a partnership with us and hope to have a long-term relationship with them. We did have to reduce the number of days that we were able to offer morning swim, and really it was due to the availability of lifeguards. Luckily, we are recommending 2 more to be appointed tonight, but our lifeguards are our students and they are very busy students, and so we were unable to have a lifeguard Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Hopefully, we will be offering a training to have more students certified, which then hopefully will allow us to go back to our 4 days a week. But that is the reason why we had to reduce our number of days for morning swim. And lacrosse. So as Craig did the presentation last time on the numbers, the survey, the interest. So we have had a request to add boys and girls lacrosse. It would be a merged team with Avon and Livonia. So, one of the things that we need to take into considerations are the costs. So it'd be approximately $3,500 to $4,500 for boys and $3,000 to $4,000 with girls. And that cost is if we start with one program. So that modified 7, 8, 9 age level bracket of students. If we were to add the modified JV and varsity, that cost would increase. But if we move forward with the program, we would most likely do it at this modified level. So wanted to give you those costs for that part of it. Then there are transportation costs. We have to have our students transported to practice. So that would be a daily cost for transportation. And then anytime that we were traveling to away contest, we would be having to, again, transport our students, be looking at an additional $1,000. So to add lacrosse, we would be looking at between $17,000 and just under $20,000 to add one level of lacrosse to our district. Craig and I will bring a recommendation to you at the January 3rd board meeting. Wanted to give you the information ahead of time so you had time to process it. Send us questions ahead of time that we can then answer at the next board meeting, but wanted to let you know where we stood and what we've done to really research this project. Craig did offer a parent night for parents to come and hear about the program and what it would entail. November 29th, was that when it was?
Yeah, 29th and 30th, yeah. I had the both varsity coaches, boys and girls coaches were there from Livonia. The AD came. The Livonia AD came because they kind of oversee the program. It was basically Livonia. Probably had 15-ish or so people there interested in it. And last about an hour or so, lots of questions, good questions, good feedback back and forth. But that was a really helpful discussion. Try to answer some questions and provide more information.
What's the level of potential?
It would be modified, it'd be mod A, which is 7, 8, 9. They've had 3 levels in the past. However, their numbers have decreased. So this year they're just going modified and varsity. Try to build the numbers back up.
Is Livonia would be like the base school then?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. Practices are flexible. I've seen most of the practices are in Livonia, but sometimes they're going to have on turn. So let's say so we would jump on board. Possibly there as well.
Is it possible to get the gist of the information from that meeting shared with the board?
Like the types of questions.
Yeah, just whatever. There was a lot of information shared, a lot of questions. It would be helpful.
Yeah, I can share some of the comments that were there and some of the information shared. I can
other questions in regards to the cross-promoting?
Do you want us to send you some before the meeting?
Yeah, if you have questions, yes, absolutely, and then we will be prepared to answer them in public session on January 3rd. And then upcoming events, you know that our concert season has started, that's why we moved the board meeting tonight. We did have our band concert last week. Tonight, we do have our middle school, high school chorus concert. Then the all-time favorite, the K2 chorus concert, which there will be standing room only, as you know. Then our 3 to 5 grade chorus concert. We do have an early dismissal drill. It's not as exciting as the concerts, but just wanted to give you that information. And then we do have our elementary, middle school, high school strings concert on December 19th. Then, hard to believe, winter recess was beginning. So the school year is going by very quickly. And so just want to take this time to wish everyone a happy holidays, because this is our last board meeting before the holidays, and thank you all for that you do. Are there any questions?
Thank you. Community relations. Oh,
Hello. Hi, everyone. First, I want to take this opportunity to express my gratitude to the administration and to the board for agreeing to sit down earlier than we normally do to begin our contract negotiations. You know, there's a lot of stuff going on, and we felt as a GFA, the earlier we started this, the better it would be for everyone, to give us ample time to really settle a good contract. It's become really apparent over the last few years that Geneseo has been hit by the teacher shortage that is encompassing our nation. I've heard David talk about this in open session of board meetings. He talked about it at our mentor intern meeting. He and I have had conversations outside of this arena to have discussions about that. It's been frustrating for everyone, especially it feels like this year when we have open positions that are not able to be filled by certified teachers. And that's, you know, can be really detrimental to our kids. One reaction to this is to offer prospective teachers larger salaries to entice them to come to Geneseo. And I understand this must happen to an extent. Where I struggle a little with this is when the justification can be to bring the best and the brightest teachers to Geneseo. The reason why I have a problem with this is because, in all honesty, we have many of the best and brightest teachers already working here. And I don't think that they are mutually exclusive, but it hurts a little bit to hear that phrase being said. Don't get me wrong, I'm a great new teacher. But my feeling is that we currently have so many great teachers here, and we need to really recognize that they work to become experts at their content area, experts at working with kids, but more importantly, they become invested in Geneseo and who we are at Geneseo. For some, the financial implications of staying at Geneseo have outweighed their love of being a Blue Devil. This summer alone, the middle school, high school lost at least 4 tenure teachers, some with 10, 15, or 20 years experience at GCS. For a few years now, members of the GFA have come to me with concerns about salaries that new teachers are hired at. And I basically always start the conversations in the same way. You negotiate your salary when you come in, and the district, it is appropriate for them to offer an appropriate salary to whoever comes in. And we have no control over that. I've had meetings with Cindy, meetings with David about this, and they have listened, and I absolutely believe they understand where we are coming from. But I wanted to give you some very specific perspective of something that you're going to be doing later today and how that affects the way we feel about this. So tonight, I think you're going to be approving the ELA teacher, and I've heard wonderful things about this person. He's been working for 6.5 years as a teacher at different districts, and his salary coming in is listed in the agenda as $59,750. So I'm going to give you some stats of some teachers who are working at Geneseo. We have a teacher who's been teaching for 20 years, 15 of those at Geneseo, and he's only making about $100 more than this teacher who's coming in with 6.5 years of experience. We have a teacher who's been at Geneseo for 8 years. She's been teaching for 13 years, and they are making over $5,000 less than the teacher coming in with 6.5 years experience. We have a teacher who's been working for 16 years at Geneseo, all of their years at Geneseo, and they are making less than this teacher who's coming in with 6.5 years experience. And there are many more examples I could cite. I pulled a few, and every one I saw, I got more and more frustrated with, but this one really kind of hit me, probably because it's a little close to home. It's someone who's in my department. There's a teacher who's been here for 7 years, who has dedicated an insane amount of time, who does everything they are asked to do. They've been working here for 7 years, so a little bit more than this new person coming in. They are going to be making $11,600 less than this person coming in. So try putting yourselves in our position. When new hires make the same or more than we do, with far less experience, it sends a message that our teaching years are not really that important. Even more upsetting to me, and this is really personal, it sends a message that our dedication to this school doesn't matter. We certainly don't feel like we're being paid like it matters. I understand there are complexities to this situation, and really what I'm asking is that you understand that as well. I know everything comes down to dollars and cents, but it's really important that you understand where we're coming from on this. You don't have to look far to find outstanding teachers. Walk around these halls. We're here. We've been here. The question is, are you going to be able to keep us here? So we look forward to looking at this issue as we negotiate our contract, and we hope that together we can address these concerns to find a way to work through this teacher shortage by not only hiring quality candidates, but also keeping the outstanding people we already have working for us right here at GCS. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Allison, one point, and it was just on the teacher's on the public facing, he had actually had an error who's been working for 9.5 years. Still, many of those examples would still hold true, and but just it's not 6.5 years, it was 9.5.
Thank you.
Hello. I'm coming as the parent to advocate for lacrosse. Last year was my son's first year in the program. He fell in love with this. He would actually sneak out of the house when I would tell him to go take a shower when we got back from practice to go out in the yard and practice. Before he got on the bus, he'd beat the stick in the hand. Before practice, stick in the hand. It was intense. This huge love that he developed for it. He struggles with anxiety. So before football games, he would melt down, cry. It would be carrying him out to the car to drive him to the game. With lacrosse, he finally started finding his confidence in himself. And he was excited for the game. And then this year, with football, he scored his first touchdown. He's excited for basketball to start. When he's in a sport, he will go from like honor roll. He does have an IEP, so he does struggle, but he'll be up on a high honor roll when he's in a sport that he's dedicated to, because he just focuses and he drives himself. Just watching all of the boys from Livonia, Avon, and Geneseo last year, they formed a team. There was a group chat that was the most hilarious thing that I ever read. And they really inspired each other. It's just really excited for a chance for them to continue to play together. There are opportunities for our boys to play outside of the school. As a single mom with a single income, not an option for us. $2,000 and then tournaments out of state. I just broke my heart and I was like, sorry. So when this was brought up, I was very excited. And I'm really hopeful that there's a chance for them to keep playing.
Great, thank you.
Good, thank you for coming in. Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. Any reports, Mike?
We met on finance, thanks everybody for coming in early tonight. I think you've heard the flowers and foresters discussions. Some of the topics we talked about, the only other topic we discussed, it's in your packet, is the reserve accounts. We went through each of those, so you have a good sense of the strategy as well as the current amount, and it's available in the packet. That's all we got. Right. Excellent. So much. Next meeting will be in January. Yeah. gonna start almost every meeting, is it? Getting the budget season.
Sounds good. Great. Any questions from Mike? Policy did not meet this time. We met the last time. But as a result, you'll note, item 804 are some of the, policies that we're going to pull out that, we don't think that we need. And, 805 is a first read on several other policies, and you can see it's pretty much boilerplate stuff, really nothing new on that. So, that's about it on policy. GCEF, I've got a couple, but go ahead.
Yeah, no, just, we did meet and they, are planning the Hardwood Classic on March 10th. We know that that's always a fun night. It was, about a week before we closed down as a school, Jim called me and said, I think we need to postpone our Hardwood Classic in 2020. Well, enough said. So we haven't had one since 2019. So excited on March 10th to be bringing that back to the school. It's a good fundraising event. They do a lot of great things for our school, and it's also just a entertaining night to watch our community and faculty go at it on the basketball court.
Great. I had that too. You covered the Harvard class, save the date, March 10th. This GCF does a wonderful job for our kids. And, you know, as you get towards the end of December, you're thinking about your charitable donations. Keep GCEF in mind. They just do great work, and they're a terrific group. And then I got copied on an email that Jim Memmott said this afternoon. They're going to take PayPal now. But I also understand they'll still take a check. So I covered. The other thing, this isn't directly related to GCEF, but in Jim's memo, he mentioned that William Wilcox passed away within the last couple of days. He's a Geneseo High School graduate. They lived on 2nd Street. He had taught science in Penfield, I believe. He's a member of our Hall of Fame, and you'll see his picture by the auditorium. He was a member of the Coast Guard Reserve, and he was either a lieutenant commander or a full commander, but he's there in his uniform. And he quietly donated a lot of money to that GCEF. So we'll miss some Wilcox. So that's all I have.
Was it
Pardon me?
sudden?
You know, I wasn't sure from, I'll have to reread Jim's note to us. He had to be in his 80s. Yeah. Okay. So we'll go to personnel. Good.
Okay. Under personnel, I'd like to entertain a consent motion for items 7.02 to 7.10.
Second.
Question on any of those?
Vote on 7.05.
Oh, yeah. Are you gonna get them up early then?
Abstains from
Yeah, okay.
7:05.
Any questions on any of those? Everybody's good. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? One abstain? Thank you. Good business.
Under new business, I'd like to entertain a consent motion for items 8.02 to 8.11.
Second. Questions on those? Everybody good? Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Unanimous, thank you. And business office.
Under the business office, I entertain a motion for entertain a consent motion for items 9.02 to 9.05.
Second. Any questions on those?
I think our donors who have provided money to our drama club have our community support.
Can I just say too, that those are only checks that came in, people who made donations through the box office, many people did that, and so they just aren't pulled out separately, so. We're actually putting something in linkages to thank the community for their support, because we really do appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, pretty good. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Opposed? Unanimous, thank you.
Entertain a motion to enter executive session to discuss negotiations.
Negotiations, personnel, and one litigation.
Personnel and one litigation.
All in favor? Aye. Before everybody goes, I'd just like to thank Sherry and Cindy for the Christmas remembrance. I'm sure it's low-cal. And we'll enjoy it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.